All right, good morning and a formal welcome to Kabbalah Cafe. My friends, this is a very special holiday edition of Kabbalah Cafe, and it's not because of Memorial Day weekend. That is not the holiday I'm talking about. The holiday I'm talking about is Lag BaOmer. Hi, Mariana. It's good to see you again. Okay, so today is Lag BaOmer. Today is the 33rd day of the Omer, and in Jewish tradition, today is a very, very special day. But to help explain the special, and I will also say right out of the gate, if you saw the email, then you know what we're going to do today. We're going to do something that I don't think I've ever done, which is we're going to study Zohar, straight up, not as part of Hasidic texts. We're going to start to study straight up Zohar from 1800 years ago, right? Time capsule, pure Kabbalah, and we're going to study it and open it up. But let me tell you why we're doing this. Today, as I said, is a special holiday, 33rd day of the Omer. As you know, between Pesach and Shavuot, we count the days, 49 days. The 50th day is Shavuot from the second day of Pesach. And every day has its own energy. Today, something very special happened. But to explain what happened, we need to do a little bit of background. There was once a man, once upon a time, whose name was, and you may think you know who I'm going to mention. I'm not going to mention him. I'll mention him soon. There was a man named named Akiva. Akiva, I think it was Akiva ben Yosef. Was that his name? Maybe, could be. I think so. Akiva grew up, and he was, well, what's the nice way to say this? He was not a learned man. He might have been learned in other areas, but he wasn't learned vis-a-vis Torah, Yiddishkeit, Judaism. He wasn't versed. He wasn't lettered in this wisdom. In fact, until the age of 40, he didn't even know how to read Hebrew. That's tradition. Did he not know how to read Hebrew if he was in Israel? How would that work? What was he doing with the street signs? It's like once I went to Montreal, and I came to an intersection. They had this red, octagonal sign that said "Arrête." I'm like, I don't speak French. Boom, I took it. Police turned. No, I'm kidding. That actually didn't happen. Context is king. The point is, though, that Rabbi Akiva was really unlearned. In fact, not only was he unlearned, later on in his life, and we'll tell a story soon, he said that when he used to see Torah scholars, he got so upset. He was so, I don't know if it was jealousy, but there was an anger there that he wanted to bite them. That's what he says. He wanted to bite them. I know what you're thinking. Who bites people? It's not even a thing.
I think it was a thing.
I don't know. Remember that fight Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield? Did it? Yes. You got a zero. Yes, that happened. Yeah, we're gonna pretend like we don't like. Did that actually happen on like live TV? That happened on live TV. Both years. Anyway, back to the story. Sorry, I know it's first thing in the morning, and we do have a delicious bagel spread here this morning. So we'll keep it less gory than more gory. So Rabbi Akiva was a self-proclaimed scholar hater. He was not a Torah scholar at all. At the age of 40 or thereabouts, the Talmud says that he was walking down the road one day and he sees a stone or a rock, and he sees that there's a hole in the rock. And he's wondering to himself, how is that possible? What's going on? How could there be a hole in a rock? And he sees water dripping on the rock. And he says, oh, unbelievable. If water, which is soft, can permeate, right, and bore a hole inside a rock which is hard, then maybe Torah can get through my thick skull, right? He thought, oh, maybe there is hope. Is that a Torah on the move? Interesting. Torah, someone's heisting a Torah right in front of us. All right, so oh yeah, everyone on Zoom can see it. You guys can have a live view at the great Torah lift of 2024. So he decides, you know what? Let me give this a shot. His wife was from a very prominent family. His wife's name was Rachel, right? Rachel. His wife Rachel was from a very prominent family, and her father did not approve of this marriage. You're marrying this guy. He's unlearned. He's a shepherd. What is he? Who is he? You're gonna marry this guy? That's it. We'll have nothing to do with you. They cut her out. Meanwhile, but she loves this guy and she sees potential. As they say, he's got a great upside. Like there's the sky's the limit to where this buy low, right? Because the stock is going up. Okay. Anyway, he goes to yeshiva. And when he first goes to the yeshiva, to the academy, so he has to sit. I mean, he's got to learn the basics. We're talking about the basics. And he gets befriended. This is the story is told in the Talmud. So he gets befriended by some, and they teach him, and they learn with him. And eventually, he's very. Turns out, he didn't know. It's like Benson Boone. He didn't know he could sing. Random reference. So turns out, if you get it, you get it. If not, that's also good. So it turns out he is this genius in the waiting, in the making, or in the waiting, and he rises the ranks. He becomes a great scholar. Not only a great scholar, he opens up his own Talmudic academy. And this is before the Talmud, the Gemara was written. He opens up his own yeshiva, a Torah academy. I don't know, the Torah center of wherever he lived in Israel. The yeshiva, maybe Yavne. That's where Yavne, Bnei Brak. Well, later, right? Later, he was in Bnei Brak, right? Maybe Yavne originally. Then he opened up his own academy in Bnei Brak. Correct? That's when the Haggadah, Passover Haggadah says there were 5 rabbis that got together and were discussing the Passover story the whole night in Bnei Brak. They were by Rabbi Akiva. That's where he lived, and he had his academy. The other rabbis came to him to hang out for Passover for the Seder. Anyway, but back to the story. So he became a leader, became a teacher, and he had one of the largest academies. He had, according to the story, he had 24,000 students, and those were of the finest minds and finest spirits. And this became the Academy of Rabbi Akiva in Bnei Brak. And then tragedy struck. What was the tragedy? Tragedy was that in the time period between Pesach and Shavuot, Passover and Shavuos, so what happens is 24,000 students die, only 5 remain alive. Tragedy. 5 remain alive. The dying paused or stopped, depending on the tradition, on this day of Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, which is why today is a day of celebration, a celebration of life, etc. One of the 5 students, and we're honing in on our main character for today, one of the 5 students, Rabbi Akiva, who survived the plague, and the plague happened, according to the Talmud, because Shalom Nahagu Kavod Zelazeh, they didn't respect each other properly, even though they were the students of Rabbi Akiva, and they loved each other, but they didn't respect each other. All right, that's a discussion for itself. The point is that one of the 5 students that survived is Rabbi Shimon, known as Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. By the way, I noticed something interesting. Parenthetical for those that are interested in this type of analytics. Whenever the Rebbe spoke about the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, he never said Bar Yochai. It's interesting. If you listen to the Sikha, if you listen to the talks of the Rebbe, he always said Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Now, ben and bar mean the same thing. One is Hebrew, one is Aramaic. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yochai. Nonetheless, there you have it. That's it. So Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yochai, is one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, one of the greatest students, who also survives the plague, one of 5 remaining students. He himself, then he witnesses something horrific. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. He witnesses his own teacher, Rabbi Akiva, be tortured to death by the Romans. Now, what's going on with the Romans? So this was shortly after the destruction of the Second Temple. We actually had a discussion before class about Jews relying too much on foreign governments. Let's just keep it simple like that. And how the destruction of the Second Temple happened. Well, God runs the world, but it also on the ground transpires because the Jewish people in Israel brought in Rome to help mediate a conflict of power. So the Jews are like, hey, Rome is an objective third party. What could go wrong? Next scene, the temple is burning by the Romans, right? Don't bring in the Romans. I don't know why you're bringing in the Romans. They brought in the Romans, and that's what happened. So the Romans destroyed the temple. Then they forbade. And then there were revolts. There was revolutions, revolts, Bar Kokhba, right? There was the Jewish warrior who some thought, including Rabbi Akiva, thought he could be the Mashiach and rebuild the 3rd temple and bring redemption. And so they supported him against the Romans. And then he was crushed by the Romans. And then they killed Rabbi Akiva. The Romans killed Rabbi Akiva, but they didn't just kill him. They tortured him. And witness to this were his students, including Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the hero of today, which we'll talk about in a second. Rabbi Shimon was one of the students who witnessed. his teacher, his beloved teacher, Rabbi Akiva, the great illustrious scholar, be tortured to death. It probably goes without saying that as a result of that, Rabbi Shimon did not think very kindly of the Romans. I mean, how could you? Like, they tortured this guy to death. They killed him. They murdered him brutally. What, the next thing they're like, Romans, not so bad. Probably not. So what happens is, and Talmud says a story. So there's a conversation happening amongst some of the sages. You know this story? Yeah, it's a wild story. There's a schmooze happening between, I don't know, 3 rabbis. And they're talking about Rome. Because what else do you schmooze about? Talk about Rome, talk about the government. One rabbi says, you know, Rome, I think Rabbi Yehuda, actually, the author of the Mishnah, he said, Rome, you got to get to know them. Like, you know, it's when in Rome, not so bad. I mean, yes, they did bad things, but we can work with it. And then Rabbi Shimon said, Rome? Do you know Rome? Terrible, horrible, barbarians, the worst of the worst. The third rabbi remained silent. Turns out there was a spy. Always a spy, a little espionage in the story. There was a Jewish spy, Papas ben Yehuda. That was his name. Well, I don't know that his name was originally Papas. I think that might be like Papas John. That might be a Roman-esque nomenclature. How am I saying? Nope. Does that word exist? That might be a nomenclature. That's the word. I was so close yet so far. My Scrabble game is way off. I get 0 points for that one. So that was his Roman pseudonym. He was one of the students of the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, ben Yochai, and he went to Rome with the report that his former teacher, Rabbi Shimon, was against the government. At this point, they wanted to kill him. They put out a hit. They made Rabbi Shimon a marked man, and he has to hide in a cave for 13 years, 12 years, and then another year. And his son goes into hiding with him. His son is Rabbi Elazar. So we have here Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar, father and son, that are hiding in a cave away from the Romans. According to the story, they had originally Rabbi Shimon's wife would bring them food, but then it got too dangerous. So they told her, don't bring the food. It's dangerous for you and for us. A carob tree grew and they ate carobs. I've tried to eat carobs before. I will say, I don't know. Right? Am I wrong here? It's terribly hard. And I remember it not smelling great. I mean, is that just me? Right?
I don't remember.
I don't want to be disrespectful to carobs, right? I don't know. I'm just saying, I've never encountered a carob that was like, oh, it's a great carob. Again, could be wrong. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Nonetheless. So they survived on carobs for 13 years. They come out. Oh, the Talmud continues to tell the story. Very cool. So, it gets cool. So they come out of the cave. And remember, so what were they doing in the cave? What would you do in a cave for 13 years? First of all, probably go bananas, right? I mean, you're in a cave for 13. It's before internet. Or maybe Wi-Fi didn't work. One of those two. They had nothing. No outside of it. Just him and his son in a cave. They were studying Torah. It says, who came and visited them and taught them? Was it Eliyahu Hanavi? It was Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. I think it was. That came and taught them the secrets. Yes, of course. Because Patach Eliyahu is from those conversations. Eliyahu, yeah. Okay, good. We say it every Friday night before Kabbalah Shabbat prayers. Okay, so Eliyahu Hanavi comes and teaches them Torah and the deepest secrets of Torah, and they become very wise. And I would like to imagine and picture that when they emerge from the cave 13 years later, their faces were weathered and their hair was white and their eyes were wide and bright and light radiated from their very being. But I don't know, I wasn't there, so I have no idea. Maybe they just looked like, just strolled out of the cave. But the Talmud does say that when they walk by, on the road home, they walk by farmland and they saw farmers working there, that Elazar, the son of Rabbi Shimon, was so horrified by the thought that people would engage in such menial, mundane labor, like working the field, that Talmud says everywhere he looked, he destroyed. Now, does it mean he literally had laser vision and like zapped things and made them go poof up in smoke? I don't know. That's a bit of a literal reading. I don't know if that's exactly what it means. Sometimes Talmud speaks in a little bit of hyperbole or metaphor. Could also mean he was ayin haring a lot of things, like he was looking at it askance, like, I don't like that. It says that everywhere that Rabbi Elazar, the son, looked and caused harm, Rabbi Shimon, his father, looked and healed, which means that that when he got out of the cave, he recognized that the world is not, that the majority of people are not like him, right? The majority of people are not the folks that can withstand the cave for 13 years and study the secrets of Torah and be isolated from reality and not have a day job. Most people need to go to work and that's it. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the Talmud has a machloket, has a dispute about, for sure, Torato umnato. Has a question of if Torah should be your occupation or if you also should have a day job. And it says that Rabbi Shimon, I think it was Rabbi Shimon, he was of the opinion that, yes, Torah can be your occupation, but he recognized also that it's not for everybody. It says that many tried that path and it didn't work out. It worked for him. He was a unique guy. To cut, I mean, that's the basics of the story. Ultimately, he gets out. Oh, the reason why he emerged from the cave is because turns out the Roman decree was rescinded and they weren't after him. And then okay. So then he gets out of the cave. And this is where we're picking up today. He gets out of the cave and he begins teaching the greatest secrets of Torah, known as what we know as Kabbalah or Kabbalah, right? The secrets of Torah, the mysticism of Torah. Now, mysticism was something that was always part of Torah, but was always very hidden. In fact, the first known work of Kabbalah is Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, which was written, it's attributed to Adam HaRishon. So Kabbalah, the study of the mystical thoughts is definitely an ancient discipline, but it was never really done in an organized and I guess prevalent fashion until the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who did so. And again, this would be the 2nd century of the Common Era. So this is the 100s. So we're talking about literally, 1800 to 1900 years ago. That's the era that we're talking about here. About 1800 plus years. Okay, so he begins teaching.
Rabbi, can you clarify? So this was, he got out of the cave in 1st century CE, and then he was teaching orally, but he did not write down. It was written down later on. Is that what you're saying?
So the tradition is that there was, and the Zohar speaks about this, that he had, one of his students was his scribe. In other words, one of the students, Rabbi Abba, was his primary student. His son was also there always, but Rabbi Abba, he was not only one of the students, but he was also the official scribe of Rabbi Shimon. He would write down all the stuff. Then things get a little bit hazy. This is where, no one knows what happened to the manuscript, but there's different theories. The Zohar, so the work that is composed of the teachings of the Rashbi, again, Rashbi is an acronym for Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Rashbi in Hebrew, Rashbi. So I'll just refer to him as Rashbi, it's easier. So the Rashbi, so his works are written in a book called Zohar. Zohar means radiance or light. Zohar is the book of radiance, book of light. And it's Kabbalah. This is the foundation of Kabbalah. The way Zohar is composed is it's built off of, or it's referenced to the Torah. So it starts with Bereshit, it starts with the beginning, and it goes to the end of Devarim, the 5 books of Moses, and it goes through and it selects verses and it says, here are the insights, the mystical insights. So it follows basically the order of Torah all the way through. There's multiple volumes of Zohar. So the thing is like this: Moshe de Leon, who I believe lived in the 1300s, I think 1300s. So he's maybe later, maybe earlier, I don't remember. So he finds a manuscript of Zohar attributed to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. The question is, how did he find it? So again, this is like 1,000 years later, it surfaces. So it's attributed to those ancient teachings of 1,800 years ago, but it's found 1,000 years later. The question is, how did this guy get it? He's a Spanish mystic. I think the 13th. Anyone can Google Moses de Leon, see when he lived. Some say, yeah, he definitely lived then. Yeah, 13th century, maybe the 1200s even. Because some say that the Ramban Nachmanides, who was a great mystic himself, sent the manuscript over to his son, but it got rerouted or it got lost, and it ended up with this other guy, Moses de Leon. Either way, some say that he found it was tucked away, it was buried somewhere. Some say he found it in a geniza or in a library. Either way, he found it, and it's got these ancient teachings, and ever since it's been published and disseminated. Of course, before the 1200s, no one was publishing any. There was a printing press, so publishing was a complicated task of scribes writing things, multiple copies handwritten, which was not the most efficient way to publish a book if you had to handwrite it. But nonetheless, it goes eventually becomes big, and of course, to this very day, people study Zohar, Kabbalah, and all that good stuff. So this is a little bit about. And one more thing: the end of his life. The last day of his life, which I actually have in this booklet that I put together, 8-page booklet. I have the last piece of Zohar that I quote is the part of the Zohar that speaks about Rabbi Shimon's death, the Rashbi's death, his passing. And basically what he said before he passed away, we'll read it inside, but what he said is that I'm about to pass away. I'm paraphrasing. Don't mourn my loss, but celebrate my life. Celebrate the day of my passing as the day of my life's achievements. And thus, ever since and he passed away on this day, Lag BaOmer, the 18th day of ER, 33rd day of the Omer. And so we celebrate the day of the Rashbi's passing. How do we celebrate? So first of all, we're happy, can't you see? We're all very happy, number one. Number two, it's a day that traditionally we go out to the fields and there's bow and arrow playing because that's, it says that in his lifetime, they never saw a rainbow. So bow, rainbow, bow, arrow. Bonfires, light. It says that when he passed away, there was a big light. We'll read about that inside the Zohar. And otherwise, day of celebration, music, concerts. In Israel, people go to Meron, haircuts for children's 3rd birthday, the first haircut. Many do it on this day. People go to the caver, bagels and lox. Exactly. Big celebration, huge celebration. If anyone's interested, parenthetically, today there's a major Lag BaOmer celebration at Chabad Israeli Center up in Dunwoody. Everyone's invited at 4:30 p.m. There's a parade and then a celebration, a concert, a bonfire, barbecue, food, games for the kids, fun for the whole family, etc. Okay, so that's a little bit about Lag BaOmer. And of course, in short, I gave you a lot of information, a lot of biographical information. In short, Lag BaOmer is the day of Kabbalah. That's it. That's why we have a fire. That's why it's a day of mysticism. It's a day that the father of Kabbalah passed away. And he said, on this day, all my efforts, all my teachings are culminated. It all comes to the apex, to the pinnacle, right? To the top. So that's today. So there's no other. So I was thinking, it's a holiday weekend. Should we do a class? Not a class, but a class called Kabbalah Cafe. We're not going to do Kabbalah Cafe on Lag BaOmer. It's impossible. Of course we're going to do. It's literally the day to study Kabbalah. So of course we're studying. So with that being said, let's pass these around. Let's explore some Kabbalah straight from the Zors. Get it? Zohar, Zors. All right. Yeah. We got plenty of copies. Okay, let's do this. I also have, of course, I'm going to pull this up online and give me a second. L'chaim. What are you drinking? What are we saying l'chaim to? On.
Me? What you brought? Tropicana orange juice.
Tropicana. That's not bad. L'chaim on Tropicana. Okay. Okay. I picked selections from Zohar. By the way, some of these will make sense. Some of these won't. I'll tell you this. I only mean this in a loving way. We are spoiled in 2024. Here's what I mean. I mean that we study Kabbalah, but through the lens of it being taught and retaught over centuries, and through the lens of the Hasidic masters who really bring down these totally esoteric ideas in very understandable terms and using examples and using metaphors and analogies and all this good stuff. But today, this is my decision. We're gonna study from the source. So yeah, is it gonna sound esoteric? Absolutely. But you're gonna get a taste of what this looks like in the original. That's what we're doing today. All right. So let me share my screen. Pull it up for everybody.
Isn't there a famous line about the Zohar that those who study the Zohar will go out of the exile?
Yes.
Famous line.
Yes, I did. I don't have it here, but that's a great line. Rabbi Shimon said, the author of the Zohar said that those who study Zohar will go out of exile. It will in mercy, right? In other words, it's the key to unlocking. By the way, Kabbalah in general is unlocks our soul, unlocks us from our challenges, unlocks exile, and opens up redemption. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna start. This is it. If you open up Zohar, this is the first piece you hit. The 13-petaled rose. By the way, I lifted because I like that name. So Rabbi Edin Steinsaltz, passed away a few years ago. So anyway, he wrote a book on Kabbalah called The 13-Petal Rose, but it's based on this. But it's a good title, so I use that as the caption. This is the opening, literally the opening of the Zohar. Rabbi Cheskia opened his discourse and said, by the way, why is Rabbi Cheskia quoted? What? Why doesn't he quote Rabbi Shimon? Like he's right. So it's first of all, there's more than one rabbi who was discussing the Kabbalah. So you have a few people that are mentioned throughout the Zohar. Cheskia is also chazak, come, strength, God. And the idea here, the commentaries on Zohar make mention that it alludes to the fact that when you study Jewish mysticism, because it's so esoteric, you might want to give up and say, like, I don't understand what's going on. You got to be strong. You got to kind of, get fortified and get ready. Chazak, right? Rabbi Cheskia. So it's not surprising that he opens up. Rabbi Cheskia, also, it's always patach, opened up. Why opened? Why open?
Instead of lock, open. Instead of being locked,
open. Because Kabbalah is all about opening. Exactly. So in Zohar, again, certain phrase, also, there's another phraseology. In Talmud, I'm sorry, I know I shared this and everyone's waiting to read, and I'm giving you still more interest. So one second, just very quickly, it's very important. In Talmud, if you study Gemara, you'll encounter the phrase, sometimes it's written as an acronym, Tav Shin, stands for Tashma. Tashma, which in Aramaic is Aramaic. Well, Shema is Hebrew, but Ta means come. Tashma, come in here. If the Talmud is bringing a proof, the Talmud asks a question. What would be the law in such and such a case? So the Talmud will then continue, Tashma, come in here. I'd like to bring you a proof. Tell me what you think about this. In Zohar, it's never Tashma. It's Tachazi, come and see. It's not come in here, it's come and see. Idea is this book, the book of radiance, it's a book of light, it's a book of vision. It's not hearing. Hearing means you're detached, but seeing is much more present. So, okay, those are a few. I'm very excited about this. Rabbi Cheskia opened his discourse and said, it is written, as a rose among the thorns, so is my beloved amongst the daughters. This comes from Shir HaShirim, chapter 2, verse number 2, Song of Songs. Song of Songs was authored by King Solomon, a very mystical work. Well, on the surface, a very romantic book, but on a deeper level, it is a very mystical work. And it's interesting that the Zohar, which is formulated based on the parshiot, based on the Torah portions, opens up not with Genesis 1:1, but with a verse from Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, to indicate just how special Song of Songs is and how deep it is. So, continues, who is the rose? Who is the rose? Right, a rose amongst the thorns. Who's the rose? This refers, says the Zohar, to Knesset Yisrael, the collective soul roots of Israel, Malchut. Now, this is a euphemism, Knesset Yisrael, for the energy that we know as Malchut, which is the lowest of the 10 Sefirot. Anything in brackets is not in the original, it's commentary, just so you know. For there is one level of a rose, and there is another level of a rose. There's two levels of rose, two roses. Just as a rose, which is found amidst the thorns, has within it the colors red and white. Also, Knesset Yisrael has within her both judgment and loving kindness. So Malchut, which is the lowest energy, which is the energy that interacts with creation, God's energy that interacts with creation, has the capacity for both judgment, which is din, right? Judgment, which is stern discernment, as well as chesed, loving kindness. Compassion and judgment, two different modalities. Malchut, the divine active energy that deals with creation, has both modalities. Okay, let's continue. Oh, and that's signified by the red and the white of a rose. Now, here's the deal. Probably should have brought a rose in. But my understanding is not that there's red roses and white roses, but that a red rose also has white inside. Does it have white inside? Are there white like
Chips.
it's white? There's like white, I don't know. Petals or not petals, like this is it.
Where the petals connect into the center, it is whitish. I don't know that I'd call it white, but it is much lighter than the red.
I believe that that's the reference. Exactly. I believe that's exactly the reference. There's red and then it gets lighter. So that's a symbolism. Red would be gvura, severity, and white would be chesed, right? That would be the symbolism. That malchut, which is the rose, has the capacity both for judgment. Oh, what are you doing? As well as compassion. I love you anyway, no matter what you do. Okay.
Hair's breadth, that's separate. Hair's breadth, that's a separate, that's not part of the rose.
The what?
The hair's breadth.
I don't know what that is. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, the baby's breath.
That's what's called baby.
I think so. Talking about the white stuff in the bouquet?
The white,
Yeah, that's something else. That's something else. That's your local florist thanks you for the reference, but no, that's not
Baby's breath.
I think it's baby breath. That's what I always say. Well, what do I know? Ich bin nicht kein florist. All right. Just as a rose. Oh, here we go. Just as a rose has in it 13 petals. Oh, who knew that? Roses have 13 petals.
Pomegranates, 13 seeds. Just roll with it.
Clear. Just roll with it. It doesn't, right? Just roll with the number. Rose has 13 petals. So too Knesset Yisrael has within her 13 paths of mercy, which surround her from all sides. Now, listen. What we know is that there are 13 attributes of divine mercy. Remember, right? God tells Moshe, this is after, I want to say, the sin of the golden calf. And Moses is praying for forgiveness for the Jewish people. And Hashem ultimately says, I'll forgive. And Hashem then reveals the 13 attributes of mercy. Hashem, Kel Racham V'Chanun, Erech. Well, we sing it every high holidays and sometimes on the regular holidays. Hashem, Kel Racham V'Chanun, Erech, Hayim Rav Chesed V'Emes. Right, so these are the 13 attributes of mercy, God, compassionate, slow to anger, etc., forgiving. Okay, so 13 divine attributes of mercy, and that is symbolized in the 13 petals of the rose. The rose is Malchut, Knesset, Yisrael. There's two options, there's judgment and loving kindness, there's red and there's white, but the petals, 13 paths of divine mercy, which surround the rose from all sides. Let's continue. Also, by the way, if you're like, well, this is a little esoteric. Hello, we're studying Zohar. This is going to be very esoteric. Let's continue. Also, the divine name Elokim, related to Bina, here in the Torah's opening verse. Oh, right. So now we know why it's referenced to the opening verse of Torah. Remember, this is the opening section of Zohar. Bereshit bara Elokim. So now we're about to have an exposition, an analysis on the name Elokim, which is the first name of God that we encounter in the beginning of Genesis. So it's all related. We're not just randomly quoting Song of Songs. We're getting back to an insight into the name Elokim. Also, divine name Elokim related to Bina, which is divine understanding or divine understanding. From the time that it is mentioned, brought out the next 13 words in the Torah to surround Knesset Yisrael and to guard her. Look at this. From Elokim, Bereshit bara Elokim, 8, Hashemayim, V8, Haaretz, Va'aretz, Haita, Tohu, Vavo, V'choshech, Apnei, Tahom, V'ruach, Elokim. 13 words until the next Elokim.
Oh.
From the first Elokim to the next Elokim are 13 words. I just counted. I'm not going to do it again. I can't. I don't always remember biblical verses like that. But 13 words from the first Elokim until the next Elokim. From the first, in the beginning, God Elokim created, and the spirit of Elokim hovered on the face of the deep. So on the surface of the deep. So this is 13 words, like the 13 petals, like the 13 attributes of mercy, to guard and protect the rose. And after this, it is the name Elokim. The name Elokim is mentioned another time. Oh, here we go. And the spirit of Elokim hovered. Why is it mentioned another time? In order to give out 5 sepals. Sepals? Sepals? I looked this up. I prepared a little bit on the anatomy of a rose, even though I don't know exactly what the white might be. The sepal is, the rose, you got like the flower, but then underneath it, you have like the the base, the green, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The leaves,
Or the
sepals,
Sepal.
sepal. Yeah, that's a sepal, straight up sepal. It's like, again, the rose looks like a cup, right? It looks like a cup. Maybe, I don't know, said no one ever. And then you have like the other stuff, and then you have the stem underneath it. So that is, why is it mentioned? Sorry? Yes, the sepal. No, it's above the stem. No, it's the
Oh, the little thing that.
the green stuff that like sets it up. Why is it mentioned at the time? In order to give out 5 sepals to surround the rose. Oh, you have a picture? You're coming up with a picture for me?
I'm looking for the first sentence of the Zohar. I'm just curious.
Oh, that's
What
funny.
the name of it is.
There you go. All right. Why is it mentioned in order to give out 5 sepals to surround the rose? And these 5 are called salvations. And they are 5 gates. And concerning this secret, and the secret means this mystical insight, it is written, Kos Yeshuot Esa, the cup of salvation shall I raise. Psalms 116:13. This is the cup of blessing, Kos Shal Bracha. The cup of blessing is required to be upon 5 fingers and no more, just like the rose, which rests on 5 sepals that are like the 5 fingers. And the rose, this is the cup of blessing. And now, my friends, I'd like to share with you that you and I just studied Zohar. We studied the opening piece of Zohar. Don't worry, we're going to study several more pieces. But this is a taste of Zohar. Is it esoteric? Yes. Is it? Do you get the sense that there's something thrilling and absolutely magical behind these esoteric words? Absolutely, yes. The message, huh? So, yeah. So in the subsequent 1800 years, a lot of this has been explained. But I just want to. But it's good to study in the original to see like how it's originally formulated in this almost code. But listen to this: you have the flower, the rose, 13 petals. That means that we're trying to. Sorry, not trying to, but that it's evocative. The rose is evocative of the 13 attributes of mercy. And then under that, you have the 5 sepals, like 5, they're kind of like leaves that also set off the rose. So you have the rose, the red rose on top, and then on top of the stem, and then you have 5 like leaves, sepals that set it off. And those are 5 levels of chesed, the Hei Chasadim, the 5 chasadim, 5 attributes of chesed. And then you have the stem, and on the stem are the thorns, and the thorns is evocative of Gevura. The idea here is that the 5 chasadim are protecting against the Gevura. Comes along, listen to this, comes on, we just read it inside, comes along the Zohar and says, and you know what the mystical manifestation of this is, or the practical manifestation of this is? Every time you say Kiddush or Havdalah, every time you have a Kos Shal Bracha. Kos Shal Bracha means you have a cup of blessing, i.e. wine that you say a blessing over for a special occasion, whether it's to bring in Shabbat, to take out Shabbat, or when a couple gets married under a chuppah. What happens? You have a cup and you fill the cup with wine or grape juice, right? You fill it up and then you hold it. How do you hold it? If you ever see Chabadniks hold a cup, it's different than maybe other people hold a cup. Some people hold, okay, 1 second. I want to demonstrate this. 1 second. Getting close to demonstrating this. All right, we'll use styrofoam. Yeah. We'll use styrofoam. So most normal people hold a cup like this. Like this. They hold a cup, right? Or if it's a wine goblet, it's got like the base and the stem, you hold it from the top. Very sophisticated. I'm going to drink. Comes up, this we just read in the Zohar. I'll put it up again. You have it in front of you. The Zohar says, what do? You take it in the palm of your hand with your 5 fingers, like the 5 sepals, and you hold your cup from the bottom like this. In fact, this is, try to model it, this is according to Kabbalah, according to Zohar. And the way Chabad, because, Chabad rolls mystical, that's how we literally roll. So we hold the cup like this. You ever see a Chabadnik? In fact, there's a whole song and dance. You always, if you're ready, you always pour with your right hand. So you take the bottle of wine, you pour with your right hand into the cup. Okay? It's on the table. Then you use your right hand to pick up the cup. You transfer it to your left hand, and then you drop it down into your right hand that's already formed like the vessel to contain the vessel, which contains the wine. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Pick it up with the right hand, do the left hand, and then right, yeah. And then you put it down into this. It's like the rose. It's literally like the sepals, the 5 sepals that are chesed, that protect against kavur. And the idea here is that every time you do Kos Shal Bracha, it's a celebration. You're celebrating Shabbat. You're celebrating the end of Shabbat, i.e. that, not that you're like Netflix, but like you're celebrating the fact that you're moving from Shabbat into the week. you're celebrating a wedding, celebrating a brit milah, anything that you say. All occasions have, seder, you have a cup of wine or grape juice. So the idea here is that you want to make sure that the wine, which, listen, wine is alcohol, can do other things also. You want to make sure that your bracha remains a bracha. Anything that has beauty also has thorns. That's the way it works. The rose comes with thorns. Anything that's powerful in a positive way also can be corrupted in a negative way. I mean, just look at what the biggest, I'm just going to be very vague here, but what the biggest possibilities of corruption, whatever, downfall are. Dissent. Right. Think about it. What are the biggest scandals that happen? Think about those areas and think about why. Why those areas? Because there's so much potential for good. There's likewise an equally strong potential for disaster. That's the way it works, which means that the more beautiful the thorn, the more sharp the thorns. Did I say that right? More beautiful the rose. I said thorn twice, I think. I'm misspeaking. The more beautiful the rose, the more sharp and dangerous the thorns are. That's the way it works. You're never going to have something that's only beauty and no negativity. If it's powerful, listen, if it's not powerful, then it's not powerful either way. But if it's really powerful potential, let's keep it neutral. Let's keep it like money. Super powerful. You can do so much good. And you know what? Super possibility for intense corruption. So that's why when we have a cup of wine, we want to do a kosher bracha. You know what we do? Put it in the hands. The hands are like the 5 sepals, the 5 chasadim we just read, the 5 areas of chesed, to protect it against the thorns of gevura. Make sense? That's the opening of Zohar. It's kind of cool. Not going to lie.
Another thing with the Chabad is particular. Now, this is probably connected with it, I don't know. It was particular not to have a stem.
Correct.
You have a stem.
No stem.
No stem.
The
connected over here.
100%. And the reason for no stem could be, let me just clarify what you're saying.
Yeah.
So the Kiddush cup, and I'm sure if you've been around Chabad on any holiday, anything, I'm sure you've seen this, where the cups don't have a stem. It's just like it's a cup like this. Kiddush cup is like silver or whatever, glass, but it's just like this. You're holding the actual cup that has the actual liquor. You're not holding the thing with the stem, but also because the stem is evocative of the thorn that you need to separate. So that's why I've seen, if there's no other option, you would actually hold your hand not under the bottom, you would hold it under the cup part above the stem.
Where the
sepal would be. You are we are the sepal. Okay, that's it. Now, let's move on. 11:07, perfect. We have 23 minutes and another 3 pieces of Zohar to cover. Okay, we're right on track. Now, I'm going to share the text again, and let's jump in. So here we go. Second chances. Okay, so I picked a piece of Zohar that speaks about what we just celebrated last week, 4 days ago, Pesach Sheni, the second Passover. In short, I mean, it quotes it here, but in super short context. So basically, the Torah says that anybody who was impure at the time of Passover and was not able to offer and to eat the Paschal lamb on Pesach, on Passover, has an opportunity a month later to bring the offering. It happened that in the desert, the first year when the Jews were traveling, there were some people carrying the bones of Joseph's bones from Egypt. Remember, they were carrying. Remember, they took him out of Egypt with them. And so you're holding a corpse, you're holding a coffin. You're impure. They said, hey, because we're impure, we should miss out on Pesach. We should miss out on the whole thing. So Moshe took it up with God, and God says, you know what? I like this idea. No problem. You'll have a second chance 1 month later. So here's the quote from the book of Numbers. Let's read it inside. Second chances. Speak to the people of Israel, saying, if any man, ish. In Hebrew, it says ish twice. All right? Ish. Could have just said ish. Kiyatameh. A man who's impure says ish, which means any man. Of you, if any man, ish of you shall become impure because of contact with a dead body or because he's on a trip far away, whether you or your distant descendants, in other words, for all time, he shall keep the second Pesach before God. Book of Numbers, chapter 9, verse number 10. Here, the Zohar kicks in. Ready? Let's go. Next page. Now, what does the repetition of the words ish in our verse, love the fact that it's word, I can just adjust the grammar. What does the repetition of the words ish in our verse come to teach us? The reason for the repetition is that the verse alludes to a man who is truly a man, i.e. an important person. This is not gender specific, but what we mean is not just stam and ish, not just a regular ish. Ish. You ever use that in conversation?
Real man.
No. You would say like, no, I don't mean man. I mean like, you just repeat the word twice for emphasis. I don't know. I literally.
Like very, very.
Very, very right. Or you're like, yeah, really, like really, really true. Like you double down on it. Ish is not just a man. Ish is the man, like a real mensch. Let's continue. This man, Ish, was worthy. Oh, you see what's going on here? We could sniff out the waters already. What's the rest of the verse? Ish ki tameh. A man who becomes impure. That means that even the highest, even someone who is a ish, can fall into negativity, but still has a second chance. That's, whoops, I've said too much. Let's read inside.
This, because more that he's a real man, more he's subject to.
Oh, the thorn. Exactly. Good. I love that. This man was worthy to receive an neshama soul from a very high spiritual level. He's not an ish, he's an ish. Double man. But he sullied himself. He became tameh, impure, through his bad deeds and gross physicality, until he was no longer pure enough to receive the subtle spirituality emitted from his holy soul. It is entirely his own fault that he cannot receive this holy emanation. By the way, let's pause here for a moment. It doesn't say that he fell down to a place that he can't receive from God. It says he can't get in touch with his own soul. Inside himself is this pure reservoir of divine light, to mix metaphors from Montauk to Donnerstadt, right? So you have, from Monday to Thursday, you have incredible spiritual energy inside, but the person, through his own bad decisions and gross physicality, that means through being magushim, through being overly indulgent in physical things, leads to a lack of sensitivity to the spiritual stuff. It's kind of like an inverse proportionality. The more you're into physical indulgence and pleasure, the less you're going to appreciate the spiritual stuff. I mean, could there be exceptions? Maybe, but typically that's how it works. So this person has become so megusham, so physical, so coarse, that he can't even feel his own soul. And his soul is an ish. He's the highest level soul. It is entirely his own fault that he cannot receive this holy emanation. Despite this, the repetition of the word ish comes to teach us that he is still worthy to receive the light from the source of his holy soul, if only he can regain his true spiritual level. In other words, ish tells us two things. Number one, this person is a very high level, which makes his current low state that much more painful for everyone to experience. And yet, ish also tells us that he has the opportunity to fix it. He's not stuck. Ish. He still has the opportunity to tap back into his potential. This is
how it says, it's entirely his own fault. So like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
he was
he's blaming his mother. Yeah. No. No blame. No blame. This is on you, bro. Right. This is further hinted. Oh, this is unbelievable. I'm getting very excited to the point that I'm having difficulty even reading the words. I'm sorry. I'm very excited. This is further hinted at by the word stating that he is on b'derech rechoka, on a trip far away, in a land, right? That he's on a trip far away in Hebrew, rechoka. The word rechoka, that means distant, far away, is one of only 10 words in the entire Torah that has a dot above it. Now, one second, let me explain. If you open up a chumash and you look at the words, everything's got dots above it and below it. That's not what he's talking about. Open up a Torah scroll, right? Open up a scroll. We saw one mosey on by earlier, right? Open up the scroll and all you see are letters. There's no vowels, no punctuation, garnet, nothing. No cantillation marks for the trup, no nekudot for the vowels, but there are some words, 10 in total, that have a dot or more than one dot above the word, randomly, not randomly. So here we go. In this instance, the dot is above the final letter hey. Rechoka is spelled rechoka with a hey. Hey at the end, there's a dot above the hey. Here we go. Let's continue inside. The Zohar says, every time a dot appears above a word or letter, it signifies that there is a special hidden meaning which is being emphasized. The reason the dot appears above the final letter of the word for far away, rechoka, above the hay, is to show that a person who made himself unworthy by his acts below in the physical world has also been sullied in the higher spiritual worlds. If you're rechoka down here, there's a dot above. You're also rechoka, you're also distant above. In other words, you didn't just pull away from your truth from God below. Above, you have somehow dislodged your soul's root above and moved it away from where it's meant to be. Since he has been sullied in the spiritual world, he's on a path taking him far away from the holy source that the people of Israel cleave to. In other words, this person is not just on the ground misguided, even at the top, it creates a dislodge of where his soul is or was or supposed to be. This man, let's continue inside the Zohar says, this man, instead of cleaving to the final hay in the name Havai of Hashem, it's a tale of two hays, right? The four-letter name of Hashem is Yud and Hey and Vav and then Hey. Instead of connecting to God's hay, right, is instead given to cleave to the final hay of the word far away. Instead of turning to God, this person turned to what we call in Hebrew shtuyot, falsities, vanities. Hence, he is sent out on a faraway route to make sure that he is distant from his holy brethren at the time of Pesach. Because he's far away, it's almost like we keep him far away for Pesach. And that seems very sad and very painful. Rabbi Yitzchak said that the verse seemingly alludes to two different things. Either the person has sullied himself or he is far away. One of those two. Rabbi Yossi replied that in the first instance, he has sullied himself, but not completely. Therefore, he is not yet at the stage of being removed far away. In the second instance, his acts have become so outlandish in respect to his spiritual source that he is removed far away. Remember, just if you don't mind looking back on the previous page or the previous side where it talks about where the verse, it says if someone's impure or because, right, if he's impure because of contact with a dead body, or because he is on a trip far away. So there's two reasons why you might need a second Pesach, a second chance, either because of impurity or because you're far away. So we just said there's two ways of understanding it, but let's focus on the second. Rabbi Yossi, he says, what does it mean? Impure means you're a little off course. Far away means you're very off course. So there's two degrees of separation. One is a little bit off and one is far off. It couldn't back inside. It could not be that he brings his Pesach offering in the second month, even though he hasn't done Shuvah or returned to his spiritual roots. In other words, if a person hasn't corrected, then then the second chance is not a second chance, because second chance is only if you show up and say, I'm back. Only after he has purified himself and repaired the spiritual damage he caused is he given, or he is then given, a second month in which he may bring the Pesach offering. From here we learn that every person who sincerely makes an effort to purify himself is purified, and that's the conclusion of the Zohar. So the Zohar, by the way, is simultaneously kind and compassionate, but also a little bit tough. And it says, look, if you're not saying, I want back in, if you're not saying, I'm back, right? Who said that? Arnold Schwarzenegger? I'm back, right? Whatever. If you're not, I'll be back. Right, my bad. If you're not saying, I'm back, then Pesach Sheni might not be for you. But the point here is that Pesach Sheni is for those that say they're back, and that's really the positive message is all you have to do is say you're back in, and you're back in. So just to put together the pieces of this insight, Dr. Max, I'll get to you in 1 second, just to kind of put it together. So we quoted the verse that talks about Pesach, the mitzvah of Pesach Sheni, the second chance, and we said ish ish. We're not talking about a person. We're not just talking about a regular Joe, who messes up. We're talking about a lofty person who falls very low, and that's a big crash. And you might think, well, in that case, that's it. You're done, canceled. It's like, oh, you were an all-star, and now you did that, right? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. You're out. That's what we might think. The Torah says no. Even if you're impure, even if you're b'derech l'choka, you can come back, but you have to want to come back. You can't come back if you don't want to come back. What does that mean? Right? You're not back if you're not back. But if you want to come back, and concludes the Zohar, this tells us that everyone has a second chance. Second chance. All right, Dr. Maxey, jump in.
Can I comment on this?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah.
So my question is the way that we're counting the Omer, is that part of coming back, if you will, a way of self-reflection, looking at how we may have brought something into the pure essence. And is that part of what we're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole point of the Sfirot Omer, like you're mentioning, is that we become reflective and introspective and work on ourselves. And that's a great way, despite what might have been a month ago, to make sure that a month later, we're in a better place. Yeah, well said. Well said.
I was hoping that the Zohar was going to talk about Shem Hashem. So here he's talking about over here that he became Rechoka.
The last hay.
Last hay connected to
the wrong hay.
The wrong hay.
Yeah, you're Rechoka. That dot above the hay, wrong hay, bro.
Okay.
You're the far hay, not the close hay.
The close hay. So which should be Yud Vav K hay.
Right.
Hay. So in Igros Tshuva, beautiful thing, and in Tanya, Igros Tshuva.
I know you like the 4 letters.
4 letters, but wait a minute.
I know you're into meditating on that. I know you.
But thankfully I have what to rely on, i.e. the Rebbe.
Yeah.
Igros Tshuva. At the very beginning, he says, "What is Teshuva? What is Teshuva?"
Oh, Kashav hay. Right.
Teshuva hay. To
Get back to
return
the
the last hay. So
Yeah.
the whole Igros Tshuva, i.e. in the Igros, the letter of Tshuva, how do you do Tshuva? The means of Tshuva from the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, he starts out by saying that Tshuva is to return the last day of God's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, just like over here.
Just like over here. Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. I just want to repeat it for everyone online that might not have. I'm not sure how good this mic is. So teshuvah, which is repentance or return, can be broken down into 2 words or two sections. Tashuv, return, and then hey. Like we said over here, the problem is this person is rechoka with the last hey with a dot over it in Torah. Torah literally puts a dot over it. Look at this letter. The hey, you're in the wrong hey. You're far as opposed to being close with God's name. Teshuvah literally means return the hey, get back to that place as well. The Yud Kei Vav, right, to God. Now, let's continue inside. Again, we have a few more pieces. I'm even wondering, let's do this. Okay, I have to go a little bit quicker, okay? So buckle up. We're going to go through it. This is a bit of a story. It's a bit of a narrative. So our narrative, so I think it's less, it'll speak more for itself. Abraham's gifts. Rabbi Abba, who I think I said before was the scribe, right? He wrote down all these teachings. Rabbi Abba opened his discourse with the words, Mi yala bar Hashem, umi yakum b'mkom kadsho, from Psalms 24. Who shall ascend the mountain of God, and who will stand in his holy place? By the way, the commentators say it's one thing to climb the mountain, it's another thing to stay on the top. 2 different things. It's easy to get excited. Remember that game where you played King of the Hill? Or was that a show? Right, where you went on top of a rock, you climbed up, and then everyone tried to push each other off so you could stand up there. One thing to get up, it's another thing to stand there, to stay there. So come and see. I'll come and see. I told you. Tachasi, not Tashma. Tachasi, come and see. Right, Kabbalah. Come and see. People in the world. Here's a bit of a lament. People in the world don't look at the reason why they are in the world. People don't think of why they're here. Their days go by and rise up in front of the Holy One, blessed be He. That is every single day that a person lives in this world. In other words, every day is meant to be filled with meaning. Every day is created by Him. And even after they have passed in this world, they each have spiritual standing before Him each day. From where do we learn this? From the verse in your book, all things are written, all days are fashioned. When the time comes for a person to depart from this world, then all those days approach and go up before the King on high, as it is written, the days of King David approached to his death, and the days of Israel drew near for his passing. I must comment on this for a moment. What this is saying, and it's very touching and very powerful, what the Zohar is teaching us is that the metric of life is not just living a good life, but it's making sure that each day is consciously imbued with goodness. And I'll just give you one example of this, what Rambam says. Is it better to give one lump sum of tzedakah, let's say for the year, or to give a little each day? Says the Rambam, it's better to give, ideally, to give each day. Why? He says because you're training yourself in the acts of chesed. Every day you're doing an act of chesed. But on this level, it's that every day has a mitzvah. Now, there are other mitzvahs. I'm just giving one example. But the point is that no day should go by in which we just live. Every day should be consciously imbued with a mitzvah, so that when every day comes before God of our life, imagine every scene. Every day is a scene, or is like a page in our flip book. Every day should have something positive. Every day should have a mitzvah, but an intentional mitzvah, not just I happen to do mitzvah, but like an intentional something positive. Let's continue. When a person is in this world, again, this is a lament. He doesn't monitor and meditate on the reason for his being alive and his purpose in this world. Instead, he thinks that all his days go by in a meaningless fashion, without any other reality involved as part of them, which is definitely not the case, as each and every day stands for eternity. When the soul goes out from this physical world and it doesn't know down which path it is being led. Wow, that's powerful. You see that? You see that? When a person leaves this world, when the soul leaves this world, it doesn't know which path it's going to go down. The reason is that the path to Gan Eden, where the righteous souls shine, is not known to all, because the manner in which a person conducts himself in this world determines the place where a soul will be drawn after it leaves the physical realm. That which he sought in this world determines the force that attracts his soul as it ascends the spiritual realms. Wow, I just got goosebumps. It's basically it's kind of, I don't want to throw my own too much interpretation in here, because I think it speaks for itself, and maybe you have a different way of understanding it. But it's almost like, you have two paths, and God dangles, at the end of the path, here's a book, here's the Torah, and here's barbecue wings. What are you used to? What are you excited about? What are you excited about? I'm just saying, right? He says the soul, right? The path to Gan Eden is not known to all. What does that mean? Is not known to all? Well, there's no signage, because not everyone considers Gan Eden paradise. You ask somebody, imagine you could spend all day studying Torah and praying to Hashem. Okay, what's my other option? Right? I'm not trying to be cynical. I'm just saying. So, simple question. Would you recognize God's paradise? Or would you only recognize material paradise?
I guess.
And if you had those options, which would you choose? That's the big question. Which would you choose? And that's literally what the Zohar is saying. It's giving a bit of a wake-up call. Let's continue. Rabbi Abba continued. One day, as I was traveling, I was in a particular city. I met some people from India. Look at this.
Story here.
A story. Everyone loves a story. ZoharStory.com. One day, I was traveling. I was in a particular city. I met some people from India. They told me some of the ancient knowledge that is found in their books of wisdom, based on the names of the unholy side that were sent to them by Abraham in an attempt to help them overcome their tendency to idol worship. That's a lot to unpack right there. It says that Abraham had children from Keturah and sent them to the east and gave them gifts. Okay, that's the gifts of wisdom. I was shown one book where it was written, one book from India where it was written that this is Eastern, just in case someone's wondering what we're talking about here. This is Eastern spirituality. This is a Kabbalist. Kabbalah meets Buddha.
Whatever. Right.
Something. Eastern spirituality. I was shown one book where it was written that the direction that a person directs his will in this world draws down to him a spiritual force from above. Karma, right? That's Eastern. That's exactly what he's talking about. This spirit is similar to his desire to reach a goal that he has connected himself to in this world. If his will is directed towards something lofty and holy, he draws that thing from the spiritual realms down to himself, lofty and holy. If his desire is to cleave to the force of impurity, ego-driven desires, and he makes this his focus of meditation, then he draws down that thing unto himself from on high. In other words, what's your Gan Eden? What do you want? What's your paradise? What's your paradise?
Very cool.
Cookies or Kabbalah, right?
See, that's where we have Kabbalah Cafe.
Have both, right? Okay, all right. We feed both. No, but that's the question. Well, what is your desire? What do you like? What do you like? That's what you're going to attract. What do you like? The law of attraction, right? They told me the folks from India that the essence of this teaching is to cleave with words and actions and heartfelt meditation to the desired object, and by doing so, he draws down power from that side he cleaves to. I found in the same book rites and ceremonies relating to worshiping the stars and constellations, and the mantras needed to be chanted in their worship. There were also instructions as to how to concentrate a person's will on them in order to draw these forces down onto himself. The same principle applies to someone who wants to connect himself to the higher divine spirit, not just to other forces.
Now he's talking about the Jewish.
Yeah. It is through action. Correct. He's learning, right. Now this is on a Jewish. On a Jewish side, right?
Jewish side.
It is through action accompanied by speech and fervent meditation directed toward a particular thing that a person can draw down a force from above and cleave to that object. They also added, the folks from India, that in the way that a person's will leads him in this world, so he is led after he departs from this world. Not only is the law of attraction, as it were, that in this lifetime, what you're attracted to comes down, but in the afterlife, what you were attracted to in this world creates your paradise.
Like forever.
The very thing, right? It's the very thing he cleaved to in this world is what he seeks in that world. If in holiness, then he connects to holiness. If in impurity, then he connects to the impure side. If he is drawn after the whole, there's a story of the Baal Shem Tov. An analogy. There was once a wagon driver who was a low life, just not a good person, but he dies. He goes to heaven. He goes up to the heavenly court, and they look through his life and say, you know what? At one point, he did save a man's life. Somebody was stuck in the mud. He pulled him out. He was going to die. He pulls him out. He saved his life. So they say, you know what? If you save a life, that's really big. He has paradise. What kind of paradise are you going to give this guy? This guy was like a grub mensch. It's Yiddish for like a very coarse individual. What kind of paradise are you going to give him? So they asked him, what do you want? He said, give me a nice smooth road, some strong horses, a nice wagon, and a good whip. There, the Baal Shem Tov says, and there he is for all time, whipping the horses in above and saying whatever they say. Giddy up, I don't know what they say. The horses on a wagon. The point is, what is your paradise? What are you attracted to? What do you like? You know, if he's drawn after the holy, then he's led to that side. And cleaves to it in the spiritual realms. He is made a servant among the other angels. Thus, he is connected in the spiritual realms and stand among these holy ones. As it is written, then I will let you walk between those who stand before me. That means walking amongst the angels. The angels are called Omdim. In a similar manner. Hey, Natan, good to see you. In a similar manner, if one was drawn after the impure in this world, he is drawn to that side and made to connect himself to them and be like them. That's the negative side. Pass it down, please. These are called pests. Wow. Causing damage and terror to mankind. We need some pest control here. At the time that their spirit leaves this world, it is drawn to Gehenna. That's not the good place. The place where he is judged along with all those who have defiled themselves in their spirit. Afterwards, he becomes one of them, and damages and terrorizes the world as they do. Mazikim. I don't know. We don't, well, okay. We may need to modify this piece of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I said to them, my sons, maybe all that is in the Indian text. I said to them, my sons, these are words similar to those of the Torah. Nevertheless, you should stay well away from these books.
Oh, all this is.
It might have been.
Why he brings a pasuk?
I know he brings a pasuk. I'm not sure. Maybe he's going back and forth. I said to them, my sons, these are words similar to the Torah. Nevertheless, you should stay well away from these books, in order that you not be led astray by those forms of worship and all those negative forces that are mentioned there, and stray away from worshiping the Holy One, blessed be He. All these books mislead a person. The ancient children of the East were wise. They inherited the wisdom that Abraham sent with the sons of his concubines, as it is written. I mentioned this before. Abraham gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them eastward to India, away from his son Isaac, while he was still alive. Over time, they were drawn down. Many wrong paths by that wisdom. The implication here is that the wisdom that Abraham sent to the east was pure, but then it got corrupted because it didn't have those it kind of didn't have that fact check piece of it.
It also wasn't created before we did it. Now it's for.
No, I know, but it's still got. If you don't have, it's like ChatGPT. It's like AI.
Yeah.
It hallucinates. If you don't have a barometer, if you don't have
The Torah as the truth.
if you don't have a metric of truth right nearby, and you just create something, it'll just spin off. It'll spin off. It's like even Google's a predictive AI search thing. Last week, I saw an article. They're like, somebody types in, how do you prevent your cheese from sliding off your pizza? So it was like, you mix super glue into the recipe. That's what it said.
That's what it said back. It said that, yeah.
It doesn't have seichel.
It doesn't have seichel.
There's no seichel.
There's no.
Yeah. Sivana is saying it's not wrong. Well,
it doesn't have that. It doesn't have.
Remind me not. Doesn't have seichel. Doesn't have that object. So imagine you take the wisdom of Abraham away from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Abraham and Yaakov, and then it runs. It just hit run.
Unrooted.
It's just gonna go wherever it goes. It could go any different directions, like a Plinko chip. This
Rabbi?
didn't happen. Yes. Tony.
Two quick questions. One is, you had shared a passage a while ago, maybe from the Rebbe, I forget, but it was that story of Abraham and Sarah in the desert, and they're essentially preaching to wayfarers in the desert.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, when you have this story of, when they use the word idol worship in India, it just makes me wonder why, at what point Judaism stopped being preaching,
Right. Good. Monotheistically outreaching. Yes. I think, the short answer is I think that was unique to Abraham. I don't think we see that with Isaac or Jacob. They kind of stayed into themselves. Maybe first generation, they needed at least a few more. But you're right. It's really not about necessarily going out there and trying to convince people. It's interesting. That's a good point. Is
there a word for the pests that were mentioned in the text earlier?
Well, I think mazikin, probably. I have to look up the original, the damagers, or the I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's a spiritual thing. It's like spiritual reality that's born of a connection to negativity. Yeah, I would have to look at the original, but it is an interesting phraseology. So let's
is that kind of like
yeah.
Saras?
I don't think it's exactly that, but it's similar. It's a negative energy, a negative spirit. So let's finish this piece. This didn't happen to the sense of Isaac and the inheritors of Jacob, as it is written, and Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. This was the holy portion of faith which Abraham adhered to, and which gave rise to the inheritance of Jacob, of whom it is written, and behold, God stood over him and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. And it is further written, and now listen, Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Because of this, it is proper for a person to be drawn after the Holy One, be always, as is commanded, you shall serve him, and to he shall you adhere. And basically, this conclusion of this piece of Zohar is saying that the right path is to stick strictly to God, and not, because remember, those books from India also talked about how to worship the stars, how to worship these other things, and that was a deviation from the original wisdom. And the point is that originally they had the spiritual gifts, but they didn't have the anchor. That's the word I was looking for, the anchor. If you don't have the anchor, it's like ChatGPT, it's like AI. If you don't have the anchor, you're making up now cases for lawyers that they bring to court and then get thrown out. That is awkward. Okay, final piece. I'm skipping a piece. Oh, wait. Did we finish it? Oh, there's still more.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. We're going to skip it because I want to get to one more piece. I want to get to the Rashbi's passing, and then we're going to close out because we're already at the time. I just want to read about the story of his death. Today is his yahrzeit, so let's read about how he passed away. We have learned Rashbi's passing. Last, I don't know, one of the pages subsequent. We have learned on the day that Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was to depart this world, he began arranging his teaching. Let's skip the indentation. That's common. The disciples of Rabbi Shimon found out that he was making his final arrangements. They gathered together at the house of Rabbi Shimon. That's the Rashbi, the guy, the hero of today, right? Before him were Rabbi Elazar, his son, Rabbi Abba, scribe, and the other disciples. So the house was filled. Rabbi Shimon looked up and saw that the house was full. He wept and said, on another occasion, when I was deathly ill, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yara was with me. While I was choosing my place in Gan Eden, they granted me extra years until now. When I returned to the living, a fire surrounded me and it never ceased, so that no person could come in to me without permission. Let's skip the indentation. Now I see that it has ceased. The fire has ceased, so the house is filled up with people. In other words, he's like, who invited all these guys? I used to have a fire. I used to have bouncers. What's going on? Spiritual bouncers. Let's skip the thing again. While they were sitting, Rabbi Shimon opened his eyes and he saw what he saw. That means he saw the divine presence. Then fire surrounded the house so that everybody fled outside, leaving only Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Abba, who were worthy to receive the Shekhinah. The remainder of the disciples sat outside. Rabbi Shimon said to Rabbi Elazar, son, go outside and see if Rabbi Yitzchak is here. I made a promise to him that he would live until the day of my passing, that I would take him into Gan Eden. In other words, that we would pass away together, that I would lead him into the Garden of Eden. Tell him to put his affairs in order and then come and sit with me, happy as his lot. Rabbi Shimon arose in deference to the Shekhinah and the souls of the saintly tzaddikim that had descended to be with him as he revealed the secrets of the Torah. He then sat again, smiling and happy. He asked, where are the disciples? Rabbi Elazar rose and brought them in. They sat down before Rabbi Shimon. I will tell you that up until now in the narrative, it seems like people are going in and out. It seems like, why are people here? Why are people not here? It just seems like a lot of that stuff. But let's continue. Rabbi Shimon raised his hands in prayer and made his supplications with great joy. Then he said, those who were in the Idra Rabbah. Okay, Idra means a threshing floor. This refers to an incident where a bunch of tzaddikim, holy mystics, gathered together. 2 of them actually died, or 3 of them actually died. They gathered together in the spiritual ecstasy in the Idra. The Idra is, again, a threshing floor, I don't know, like not Woodstock, but like it was like an open area where they gathered and they had a mystical experience. Idra Rabbah. Then later on they had an Idra Zuta. So Idra Rabbah means a big threshing floor. Idra Zuta is a small threshing floor. So those who were in the Idra Rabbah, the original group, are invited to stay, but not the rest of the visitors, lest they put themselves in danger. Oh yeah, that would be dangerous if you're around too much light and not ready for it, as the Idra Rabbah itself demonstrated. They all went out, and only Rabbi Elazar, his son, Rabbi Abba, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Chia remained. Meanwhile, Rabbi Yitzchak arrived, and Rabbi Shimon said to him, oh, Rabbi Yitzchak was the one who was going to pass away with him, right? Was that Rabbi Yitzchak?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So Rabbi Yitzchak arrives in the meantime, and Rabbi Shimon said to him, how fortunate is your lot? I mean, that's one way to put it. In other words, we're about to go. How much joy should be added to you on this day? Rabbi Abba was sitting behind Rabbi Shimon's shoulders, Rabbi Elazar before Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon said, now is an auspicious time to reveal the secrets of the Torah. I wish to enter the world to come without shame. For the holy matters that I did not reveal until now, I wish to reveal in the presence of the Shekhinah, so that no one will say that I left the world without fulfilling my task, and that I concealed these secrets in my heart until now, so that they would come with me to the world to come. In other words, I don't want to have Torah that I didn't share with you and took it with me to the other side. I will present them to you. Rabbi Abba shall write. Oh, I told you, Rabbi Abba was a scribe. Rabbi Abba shall write. Rabbi Elazar, my son, will review them, and the remaining disciples must whisper them in their hearts. By the way, whisper them in their hearts. You know what that means? Keep it on the down low. Kabbalah is not meant to be at that stage yet for everybody. It's whisper in their hearts. I will see today. I will see. Oh, here we go. I see that today is special. That's today. That's literally today. For God and all the tzaddikim are rejoicing in my celebration, Hilula. That means in his passing. He called it his day of Hilula, celebration. That's why we literally celebrate Lag BaOmer, his passing. Who celebrates a yahrzeit? You commemorate a yahrzeit. You light a candle, and you reflect on the life of your parent, grandparent, or whatever it is, or teacher, mentor. It's more of an introspective, meditative day. It's a day of celebration. He called it a day of celebration. This is why we celebrate today.
Until today, it's called Hilula.
Literally, Hilula. So it's called the Hilula, the celebration of Rabbi Shimon. Who called it that? He himself. These are his words. Rabbi Abba rose from behind Rabbi Shimon's shoulders and sat before Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar continued sitting before Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon said, arise, my son, for another. A tzaddik from the upper worlds will sit in that place. He's like, someone else is coming down for right now. You got to move over. Rabbi Elazar rose and sat down elsewhere. Again, there's just a lot of maneuvering. So far, a lot of maneuvering. Rabbi Shimon wrapped himself in his talus. He sat down and said, the dead do not praise. The dead do not praise God from Hallel, right, from the Psalms. Nor do those who go down into silence, the eternal silence of the grave, for the absolutely wicked. The dead do not praise God. This surely means those who are called dead, even when they are alive, for God is called eternally living, and he dwells among those who are called alive, or alive, the righteous, and not among those who are called dead, even during their lifetimes, for they do not cleave to God, the source of life. In other words, it's not saying that only the dead don't praise God, but those who are alive but not connected, they also don't praise God. The end of the verse states, nor those who go down into silence, those who descend to silence remain there, meaning only those that descend to silence permanently will not praise God, whereas those who experience a temporary spiritual anguish, purgatory, or Gehenna, after death, do return to God, to utter God's praises. Oh, that's hopeful. Okay, great. But those who are called alive are different. The Holy One he desires their honor. So again, there's three categories. Those that are alive, tzaddikim, great. Those who are called dead, even in their lifetimes, that then go to purgatory, but then there's two options, either purgatory or silence. Yardei Duma is like doom, but it's silence, right? Those that go to purgatory, they still have a chance. Those that go to silence, that's it. Rabbi Abba recalls, I was writing. Oh, right, he was the scribe. By the way, ... means that we cut out a bunch. Rabbi Abba recalls, I was writing in the middle of quoting a verse. Rabbi Shimon stopped the word Chaim. He was quoting a verse. He said the word Chaim. I waited, wanting to continue. I was waiting, but did not raise my head to see where Rabbi Shimon had stopped, for I was unable to look at the great light that was shining around him. Suddenly, I heard a voice call out a verse with the word Chaim, and then another voice called out an additional verse. I fell to the ground and wept. When the fire and the light departed, I saw the great light. Rabbi Shimon had passed away. He was lying on his right side, and his face was. Wow. That is the passing of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, as told in the Zohar. By the way, this is the part of Zohar 3, Idra Zuta, which is the smaller gathering. I don't know if this was the actual Idra Zuta or it's called Idra Zuta because of the general smaller gathering, but this is where his death is talked about. And this spans, as you see, from 287 to 296, a bunch of pages. So not everything was quoted, but that imagery is beautiful of him passing away, but with his light and with his smile. And this is the gift. And he gave us the gift of Kabbalah. And it is a truly marvelous gift that we have. And we have the opportunity every week to study together. So on this day, let this inspire us. We studied some Kabbalah, we studied some Zohar. I told you the story of his life in times, at least in brief. And indeed, a few of the messages that we got today were the same or similar. The idea that there is hope, there is Pesach Sheni, there is only those that go into silence have no reclamation, but everyone else, even if the path is Gehinnom, nonetheless, the soul comes back up into Gan Eden and shines once again. And indeed, we should take the inspiration of today, the inspiration of the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Yochai, and integrate that energy into our lives and recall the other teaching that we read, which is to make every day count. Thank you for joining me this morning for Kabbalah Cafe, and we'll see you next week.
What is that? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, I was told
Pleasure.
that for generations that it's Torah Nistar, and he even said that it was
Whisper in your heart, yeah.
We
Keep-
grew up, it was like, it's a big
keep it
no,
quiet.
You're not supposed to learn it until you are learned, way, married, kids, whatever, because people that learned it actually left the faith.
It could be too intense. It says that 3 people died in the Ijra Rabbah, so that it's a bit intense. It's hard.
How
Oh, why is it today blown open?
How, like, who?
The short answer is the Arizal, who lived in the 1600s. The Arizal said, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, he said, mitzvah legalot zot hachachma. He said, today it's a mitzvah to reveal this wisdom. So for centuries, literally centuries, it was meant to be whispered in the heart. In other words, if you understand it, you understand it. You could share it with somebody who's ready to understand it, but it was not meant to be broken, blown open like that publicly. But again, already going back a few hundred years, the Arizal said it's a mitzvah to reveal the wisdom. It still didn't take, so he opened up a little bit. Then the Baal Shem Tov opened it up a little bit more. The Alter Rebbe with Tanya opened up a little bit more. And then subsequently, more and more and more and more. And we see today how it's prevalent. You walk into any synagogue around the world, even a non-Hasidic synagogue, a non-Kabbalah-based synagogue, which I don't think that anyone has ever said that phrase, Kabbalah-based synagogue. What is that? And nonetheless, you listen to the messages, the sermon, you listen to the drashot, and it's out there. It's everywhere you have a deeper part of
Barnes and Noble bookstore.
it's everywhere. Madonna, I don't know if she's still into it. I don't know.
I mean,
Esther, right? Esther. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Some people say it's too far out there. The Alter Rebbe got a lot of flack for putting it out there. That was one of the big complaints against the Hasidic movement, is that they're putting it out there too much. So, but we need it. We need it. Go tell someone today, do it. Why? Because I said so. It doesn't work in 2024. Like, tell me the spirit of it.
Wasn't in Rashbi driving anywhere
To open it up? No, I thought was you keep it on the download. The biggest reason is because they didn't need it then. They didn't need it. The average person didn't need it then. They were able to remain connected and Jewish without this boost. Today we need it. It's like the analogy the Alter Rebbe gave when he was challenged by those that say, why are you spreading this? Because the Alter Rebbe not only disseminated it, but he took these ideas. We read today, it's so esoteric. He took it and he explained it. Like you could read it and understand it like a Gemara. Like he broke it down into analogies and examples and Masudr, say it organized, not just like you study Zohar and you feel like you're operating like up there.
Different realm.
Study Chassidus, Chabad, Chachma Bina Dat. It's all about bringing it into intellect, into logic. So he got criticized by other mystics. Why are you doing this? He gave a parable. He gave a famous analogy. So there was once a king, had a son. The son was sick. No one could cure him. One guy said, "There's one cure, but it's going to require you to take the crown jewel, grind it up, mix it with a potion, and feed it to the prince. Now the prince can't swallow, but maybe something will get in. Do you want to do it?" He said, "Absolutely. To save the prince's life, we'll do anything." Oh, they did it. They ground it up. They mixed it with water, and they put it in. Most of it, didn't go in. A little bit went in. Right, fell to the floor, fell to the ground. A little bit went in, and it saved the prince's life. says that the analog is the nimshal is that we were collectively Jews through after millennia or whatever, after 1,600 years of exile, we were done. Pogroms and Eastern poverty, pogroms. There's nothing. There's no hope. Came along the Baal Shem Tov, and he revived. He said, "Look, let's go. Here's some Kabbalah. Here's some inspiration." So it's kedai to take. It's worthwhile to take the crown jewel Kabbalah and grind it up, not reduce it, but to put it down even to a place where someone who's can't swallow can contain it. And even though some of it will drip, some of it will fall on the floor. Some of it will end up in who knows where. Some of it will end up and be distorted. But it's kedai. It's worthwhile, even a little drop to revive the king, the prince. That was the analogy. Anyway, a lot of deep stuff. But today is the day of Kabbalah. So my encouragement for all of us is inspiration, light, commit to more Torah study, more Kabbalah, more Chassidut, and light the world on fire in a good way. This is not a call for any nefariousness. No, right? Positivity. All right. We'll see you all. Happy Lag BaOmer. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Happy Hanukkah. No, it's the wrong holiday.
Thank you for the beautiful class. I
My
enjoyed so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you,
Mariana,
Rabbi.
Good to see you.
Thank
It's good
you.
to see you.
Yeah,
I had the
good
opportunity
to
to see
see you
Mariana
again.
in person last weekend. We hung out in New York. So that was a real treat.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Give Alex my best and the whole mishpacha. Frank, good to see you.
Thank you.
Nana, good to see you. Ellen, Dr. Maxey, and myself. I'm seeing myself also. All right, we'll see you guys. Have a good week. Shavua Tov. Happy Lag.